Hello everyone, this hour on Verbling, the next in my great short story series. We're going to do a follow-up discussion on the short story A Distant Episode by Paul Bowles. Yesterday we finished reading the story, but we really didn't get a chance to talk about it. So what I'd like to do is talk about the characters, the theme, the use of English, and maybe we can do that by looking at some opinions about the story. So I've got a few articles. We can look at all or part of these articles to help us in our discussion. So more about that in just a minute. So that's a little bit about the class today. Now a bit about me. I'm John Eric, your Verbling teacher for this hour. I'm an American teacher from New York, hanging out in Lisbon, Portugal to bring you this class. By the way, here are 3 quick rules to help you participate. Don't forget to turn off, tune in, and open up. That means turn off your microphone when you're not speaking so we can keep the classroom quiet. Tune in to the new words you're learning when you are speaking. Use them actively so that I can correct you and give you feedback. And finally, open up to your classmates. Relax and have fun. We're all here to learn, and this is a safe and respectful place to practice your English. So on the screen right now, you can see the story, or at least the graphic for the story. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to open the original story, and as we have our discussion, I'm going to start to put in some questions on the last page. Not the answers, just the questions. You won't see it on the screen, but I'll write it there. And I'll also give you some links to things that you can read that will help you understand the story. So I'll do that right now. And Daniel, let me see if I can send a quick message to the others, because we got some other people joining us, but I hope they understand that the class is happening now. I'm not sure.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I know that I have a few people that, because I couldn't run the class without 5 people, so I got 5 people that said they were interested. But let me just
No problem.
send a quick message to everyone on the chat to let them know that the class is happening now. 1 second. So I'm going to send a message to Amir. We're starting, I don't remember if he was in our class though. We're starting our great short stories discussion class right now. What's the link?
Crazy history.
Wait a second. On a distant episode by Paul Bowles. All right, so I'm going to send that message to everyone just to remind them that we're starting. Shadow, I think, was going to come. Here's the link. Okay. Shadow is here. Yuki should be here as well. Send him a message. Sylvia should be here. She was interested. Who else? Anyone else? Ale was here yesterday. I'll send one to him. Ishmael was not here. Okay, I can't think of anyone else. Ah, there we go. Suming is here. That's good. That's 2. Good.
Yeah.
Let me see if. Let me just see quickly if I can find anyone else who was here. Was Nezreen in our class? No, she wasn't. Was Ricardo in the class? No, he wasn't. João, was he here? No. Oh, you know what I'll do? I will actually. Sorry, everyone. Just give me a second. I just want to quickly send a message to everyone in the last class so that they know the class is happening now. 1 quick second, then we'll get started, okay? So yesterday was talking about service, short stories. Daniel, Ale, Karar, Amir was here, okay. Muran was here from Spain. Okay. Sylvia and Shadow and Yuki. Okay, I think I got everyone. And before that was on Tuesday. That was Elena. Okay, I sent a message to her. Sylvia, Shadow, Raphael from Brazil was here. Live from Singapore. Okay, that's it. Okay, I sent a message to everyone, so hopefully we'll get to... There's Yuki. I was getting worried. I was worried you weren't going to make it, Yuki.
Yeah.
I was
Sorry.
scared. I was afraid.
What I afraid of?
I was afraid you weren't going to show up.
Now?
Yeah.
Don't worry.
Yuki is faithful.
I'm very faithful student, so I always with you.
I'll be.
All right. So here's my plan. My plan is I'm going to give you a few discussion questions, but the conversation can go in any direction you like. All right. But maybe I can come up with a few questions to get you started. Let me just get my name on the screen in case any of you don't know who the teacher is. Sometimes that happens. Verbling. Whoops. 1 second. Verbling. It would be great if I could spell the word verbling, right? Verbling teacher. There we go. All right. And I'll put these questions on the last page of the document. And I've got a few things that we might want to look at, a few articles from the New York Times, a review of this from the New York Times, and there's a few others. There's an essay I found online that's kind of interesting too by a writer who talks about how he was influenced by Paul Bowles. So that might be worthwhile as well. So there's our discussion on page 15. I'll give you some questions. Here's the first one. The first one is, how would you describe the structure of the story? What I mean by that is there a connection between the opening on the it's like a plateau. He starts on a plateau, doesn't he? And the ending in the what do you call it, at the bottom, in the valley. He's at the bottom of a valley when he gets mugged. I think, if I remember right, he gets to go down a cliff. So that's my first discussion question for you. You can also ask questions as well, and as I come up with these questions, I'll put them there. But just to get us started, think about what you've read so far, and tell me, do you think there's a connection there? So, do you remember how the story begins?
Yes, I remember. Story begins quite calmly.
Yeah.
It looks like a travel essay.
Yes, it does.
Traveler from foreign country. I mean the professor. He's a linguist. Come to a village in warm country. Then after he get settled in the hotel, he dropped in the coffee house where his old friend was owner there. But now he couldn't find him. Instead of old friend, he met with a young man. He's a kawari.
He's a what? Kawaji.
Kawaji.
Ah,
Yes.
right. Shopkeeper, storekeeper.
Kawaji. So, first half of this story, I couldn't expect such a awful, such a terrible story waiting me. I mean, the end of the story.
Right, right. It's
Yes.
unexpected. And my question is, what about you'll notice the altitude. Daniel, what does altitude mean? Do you know what that means? Altitude,
No,
like the altitude of a plane.
no,
When you take off from the runway, you have to climb altitude until you get to 30,000 feet.
I don't know what it means.
It's a height.
Height, yeah, height. Altitude is height. In the story, is there a connection between the opening on the plateau and the ending when he goes down
Yes,
the cliff into the valley? What do you think the connection is?
it's it's the it's not the same locate, but it's the same
Not the same location, right? Location,
but location, but it's the same ambient,
yeah.
dusty,
Dusty, dirty,
hot, dirty.
exactly.
Uh, it's the if you see one village in this country, you
Hmm.
are see all village.
Yeah, yeah. I agree. So it's the same environment. But
Yes, the
there's
same environment.
but if you notice, see, this is what I was going to get at. If you notice, there's now everyone's here. Hello, Shadow. Hello, Amir. We're just starting our discussion, and we're talking about. I've got some questions that I'm giving to the group, but we don't have to stick to the questions. It's entirely up to you. Oh, wait, let me show you the questions. Sorry, hold on. The questions are, I'm going to, as I think of questions, I'm going to be adding them here on page 15. Okay?
I
But
think the first scene is taking place in quite high place, high
exactly.
area, and after Professor asked Kwaji how can we get to a box he collect Kwaji let Kwaji get to professor to the low place. So
Like a
they,
valley.
eh?
Like a valley.
Like a valley. So they together go down and down. After that, Akwaji left him, and even after that, that professor one only.
Hmm.
He continued to go down the cliff. So, so I think attitude, not
Altitude.
altitude, become is becoming lower and lower as story is going.
Exactly.
Is it
I
right?
Yeah, yeah, I noticed. That's the first thing I noticed about the story, is that we start off on a plateau really high. Does everyone remember what does the professor remember when he first meets the Kawaji and he gets nervous? Do you remember the excuse that he says? He says he has to be somewhere. And that somewhere is at the top of the plateau, at the top of the hill. It's not really a hill, but you know what I'm saying. It's at the top. Do you remember where he says he needs to be? I don't know if you remember when he in the very beginning of the story in the first class, the Kawaji is going to take him through the desert to get his camel udder boxes, the things that he's looking for. He starts to get a little nervous because he doesn't know this guy, and he says, "Oh, I'm expected back where? Where is he expected? Remember the excuse that he gives? Does anyone remember?
Something is waiting for him at the hotel.
Exactly.
Is the
So
excuse.
if you picture the story like like a graph, right? It starts off over here at the plateau, and at the top of the plateau is the hotel. And the story continues down the hill, And what's the last image we're left with? Does everyone remember the very last image when the story ends?
Last image is he succeeded to escape from captured from uh, from
From
ba-
the
bad
tribe, right?
tribes. Yes,
Yeah, yeah. Or whatever they are, yeah. The
evil, quite
thieves.
evil, quite evil tribes.
Uh-huh.
But he was damaged heavily.
He's a
He
mess.
the mess.
He's a big
Just,
mess. It's true. Exactly. So here's look at this last image. Maybe I can get someone to read this. Shadow, can you read this last part for us one more time? Because I think if we compare this to the beginning, it says an awful lot about the story. Could you read the last paragraph for us?
Okay. The soldier watched a while, smiling, as the converting figure grew smaller in the once coming, the
Oncoming, yeah.
oncoming evening darkness, and the rattling of the tin became a part of the great silence out there beyond the gate. The wall of the garage, as he leaned against it, still gave forth heat, left there by the sun, but even then the lunar chill was growing in the air.
So the soldier, remember, when he escapes, the professor escapes from the tribe, he sees a soldier and he probably thinks, Shadow, when he sees the soldier, what do you think is going through his mind? He's just been imprisoned for a year by this tribe or whoever they are. We don't even know who they are, by these
Mhm.
people. And he's able to get out of the house because they get arrested. Actually, one of them gets killed, and then someone else gets arrested, and he's left alone. He leaves the house, and he sees a soldier. Do you remember what happens, Shadow, when he sees the soldier?
Sorry, teacher. I read it. I didn't read it. Sorry.
Oh, but
Uh,
you were in the last class, so maybe you remember.
yeah, I don't remember really. I'm sorry.
No
I think
problem.
soldier give up, chase him. Maybe
Not chase him. Not chase him.
he helped him to escape from
Nope.
here.
Nope.
No,
Didn't help him to escape. Nope.
no.
Look what he did. You can see it here. Look at this sentence, Yuki. Can you read that? The blue one?
Yes, that soldier took a pot shot at him for good luck.
A pot shot. So you have to know what the word pot shot means. Do you know what a pot shot is?
No, I don't know.
Okay. Does anyone ever practice shooting guns? Does anyone ever do target practice?
I think he's shooting very randomly.
Yep.
Yes.
A pot shot is when you set up a pot far away and you use it to do target practice. So to practice shooting, you set up a can or a pot or some object far away and you shoot at it, you try to hit it, a pot shot. So, in other words, the guy escapes from being a prisoner. He sees the French soldier. He probably thinks someone's going to help me. And before he has a chance to do anything, the soldier takes out his gun and tries to shoot him.
He gave up, catch him. Yeah.
He doesn't try to catch him.
He didn't.
He tries to shoot him as target practice. He sees this guy covered in tin cans and wire, and he thinks, oh, this is some crazy native. So he takes out his gun and shoots at him to watch him run away. You know, he doesn't try to kill him, he tries to scare him. He takes a pot shot at him. So that's what happens when he escapes. And look at this last image. The soldier watches, the contorting figure grows smaller and smaller. So if you go back to our metaphor or to our, imagine this as like a graph. It starts off high, the story goes downhill, you get to the bottom, and then our figure, the professor, gets smaller and smaller until the end of the story when he gets smaller and colder. So although there's a story, there's also this metaphorical thing happening. The story begins high at the hotel. He's not actually in the hotel, but he's referring to it. And the story ends low in a valley, in the desert, full of thieves and dogs, until the professor gets smaller and smaller and the environment gets colder and colder because the last thing we hear is about the lunar moon. What do you think that means? What do you think that Paul Bowles is trying to tell us about I don't know, about Western people, about tourists, about Western society and in the Eastern world? What do you think he's trying to say? Do you think it means anything? I don't know.
It's dangerous to go a wild country.
And the question is, I wonder, is it dangerous? Is he trying to warn Westerners, or is he trying to make a commentary on the Western attitude? What do you think? What's
I
he
think
trying to say about
have
Western
to
culture?
we have to pay attention that he is quite an intelligent person. He's a
Right.
professor, and in his country, in his home country, he live a quite good quality of life,
Comfortable existence, yeah.
comfortable atmosphere.
Right, right.
But now, after he was captured
Right.
by the tribe, he was humiliated. He has a very difficulty every day, playing dancing before dancing in the public.
Uh-huh.
It is very heavy life. So I think after wanted to say everyone, even such a good person, not good, such a such a person, high rank,
High, yeah, someone from a high class. He's not a
high
working
class,
class guy.
high
High class
class
is
guy.
it's not a good word because it has a bad connotation. But yeah, someone who is an educated person in the upper class of
Yes,
society.
upper class person, educated person, might become to be a very silly existence.
Yeah. He's like an animal. He becomes like an animal at the end.
His mind went blank, I think.
That's interesting, you know, because in the book The Sheltering Sky and in the movie, which is based on Paul Bowles' novel, the story is similar to this. And I think that's what happens to the woman in Sheltering Sky. She seems see, that's a good point. You say his mind goes blank. What do you mean by that? That's interesting. What do you mean by that?
Mm, it's a it's a kind of behavior like a vegetal.
Huh?
He from his injury in the night
Huh?
and taking for the tribu, for the
Tribe?
tribe.
Uh-huh.
From since this moment, he's like a vegetal. He don't
Vegetable.
vegetable,
Careful, not veggie, because we don't say the E. We say vegetable.
vegetable,
That's it.
at the vegetable. They only eat, dance, and defect.
That's it.
I think it's what's it? Um,
Say it in Spanish.
eh, él no es consciente de sí mismo, de su mente.
So
He's like
lost his mind. Lost his mind,
lost
kind
his
of.
mind.
The
It's
expression.
died, like his died is buried in his coffin, and in the end of the history, suddenly he thought, "What are you doing? What are you doing?"
Yeah,
We,
he doesn't even think anymore at the end of the story. He's just reacting, kind of like an animal. So that's
mm,
interesting because I think that's a theme in Paul Bowles. If you look at his other stories, I think
Do
it
you
makes some
remember in the
sense.
middle of the story, he was going down the cliff. He also I think he think for himself what he's doing
Yeah,
now.
why he says something like, "Why am I doing this crazy thing or this risky
Yes,
thing?"
yes.
but I
And
don't understand. I wonder
uh
how how he he arrived at this behavior, at this
yeah, exactly. How does he end up like
situation.
this? How does he end up like this? But I think that's a really good point, Daniel, because that's really something that Paul Bowles writes about. And in the Jane Bowles story we read before, I don't think you read it, um, that theme is there as well, this transformation and identity. I can't help but think this story is about identity and about Western identity. It seems to me, tell me if you agree with this. By the way, we're not all from the Western world here. So Amir and Shadow, you've got a different perspective, right? So
Okay.
right, but I'm saying maybe you think this story is arrogant. Maybe you think I don't know, but you got to talk about it from your culture and what it makes you think of.
I
For
really didn't understand all these things that it's written in this story.
But that's why we're here. We're here to make sense of it, because when we're reading, we don't have a lot of time to think.
Hmm.
So bring your questions to class. Anything you want to know, we'll talk about it and try to make it clear. So one thing that Daniel is bringing up, I think is important.
Daniel, do you remember the sentence in the middle of the story? He think himself that why he was doing this irrational thing. So I think he himself don't know why he is doing that. So
Where is that?
Yes.
Part one,
not
two, or
only us.
three? Do you remember where that is in the story, Yuki?
Uh, I mean that when he went down the cliff uh,
Right, right,
to
right, right.
the bottom to the abyss of
Right, to the
area,
abyss.
he said of himself that why he was doing uh, here it is written, it occurred to him that he ought to ask himself why he was doing this irrational thing. But he was intelligent enough to know that since he was doing it, yeah, it's such a sentence. I pasted this sentence into the chat box.
Okay. Oh,
Very
I see.
interesting phrase.
So he was intelligent enough to know that since he was doing it, it was not so important to probe for explanations. Weird. It's a strange sentence. But I think that I think that again, this is just my theory. You have to tell me if you agree or disagree. I think in these stories by both Paul and Jane Bowles, someone from the West who has a very strong sense of self and a very strong personality encounters another culture. And in that culture, they're not expecting something. It's not just that there's violence, it's something like a force. It seems to me in the story that there's violence, it's true, but it's not so much, it's not, I don't think it's presented and meant to be violence. It's not trying to say that Arab tribes are violent. I don't think that's the point. I think the point is everyone he encounters is more connected to nature than he is. He's a linguist, right? but he has trouble finding the words when he's speaking to people. He has to he has to keep speaking in French. There's a part where he can't remember the word in the dialect. It's not Arabic, but the local dialect, and he has to say it in French in the very beginning to the Kawaji. So I think what
I
happens
think
is that he. Oh,
he,
wait, one second. Let me just make the point. I think what's going on, and tell me if you agree, is that he's meeting people that have a closer connection to the world around them, a closer connection to nature, and they're more violent, but maybe they're also more kind, and they're more everything. And he's somehow more abstract, and he loses his sense of self because he's not expecting to deal with the force of nature, the force of the desert, the force of the people. So I think it's a man versus nature thing, and his identity dissolves when he encounters it. I don't know if that makes sense.
I think it's very good point. I think although protagonist of this story, he is an intelligent person,
Right.
but his criteria, his principle, principle of doing something is impulse. So
Impulsive, right?
yes,
Impulsive.
impulsively he is doing something. When he have interested in something, he is doing that. But in the end of story, more powerful impulse struck him and hold him. His life is dependent on the other people's impulse. So that's the point of this story.
Say that last part again so that I get it. So he's impulsive, but at the end, his fate depends on the impulses of others. Is that the
Yes,
idea?
his life depend on the more powerful existence. I think he is, there is a film, French film, Unbearable Lightness of Being. You
Mm-hmm.
know,
Yeah.
uh, I think there is a common theme between them. I think professor is struggling from his own existence, lightness of his own existence.
Mm-hmm.
I suppose that that's why he came to this village to find something. That's
Mm.
why he get into the very dangerous behavior.
So he does that on purpose in a way.
Yes,
Ah.
it the impulse make him doing something,
Right, right.
but he is captured by other people's impulse. That's an interesting point of this story.
So, so the story is for you. The story is about. Um, I get you. I get what you're saying. So the story is about. Really, it's hard to put into words though, but I understand what you mean. So when you say impulses, um, to me that still has to do with something, a critique of the Western world, because what I think is that he might not be completely conscious of what he's doing, right? He's intelligent enough to know, like your quote says, he's intelligent enough to know not to question it, right? So I'm doing this crazy thing, but I'm not going to figure out why. But maybe what you're saying is he's led a comfortable life, and part of him knows that he's not living a real life. He's got to experience something real, and so he's got to get out of his comfort. But what he doesn't anticipate is that other people are going to act on their impulses, and that the real world is not a nice place that like he's used to. And if he were to do this in, Europe, okay, what's the worst that's going to happen? He'll get robbed, and that's it. But
Be
here,
kidnapped.
what's that, Daniel?
To kidnap.
He'd take a nap. Yeah, he'll go somewhere, get lost, have a soup, and he'll go home, and then everything's fine. And so it's like this so yeah, so it's an interesting idea. So other people's impulses he underestimates because he's ignorant of their culture. So it's a kind of a clash. I still think somehow that Paul Bowles as a writer is trying to condemn Western society in some way.
Yes.
I don't know. What do you think about that?
I think it's looking for something about it because a regular person don't go with a unknown person in the night, uh, only with the moonlight, uh, uh, listening to barking dog.
Uh-huh.
Uh, it's very scary for me.
Exactly.
But
Like,
the professor don't mind. From time to time, he thinks about it and he wonder what I'm doing here. But he keep on
he continues.
carry on with
He carries on.
carries on with the situation.
So it definitely seems like something that a normal person maybe wouldn't do. Although, I'll tell you something, if you've ever done a lot of traveling, you often find yourself in situations where you have to trust people, whether you like it or not. And if you look nervous, sometimes that creates more problems than if you don't, even if you feel nervous. So, but I agree. Let me ask Amir and Shadow. I know that story is a little it's advanced, okay, but I'd like to know
Mm-hmm.
what your impressions were. I'd like to know what you got out of it. So, and also with our discussion. So, what do you think? Also, do you think that the portrayal, in other words, the way that do you think that the description of the people, wherever he is, I don't know if he's in Algeria or if he's in Morocco, do you think that it's a fair description? Remember, this story was written in 1945, and it probably takes place even earlier, so probably like the 1930s or early 40s.
Um,
I, eh,
okay.
do you think it's a fair description of the local people, or do you think they're
Yeah.
described? Yeah.
Yes, teacher. When you said that it's in 1945?
The story was written, published in 45, but
Yeah.
it probably takes place earlier because it's a colony still, so the French are controlling it, and there's no mention of the war. So if there's no mention of the war, we can guess that maybe this is taking place in the 30s, and the war is not a major issue. You know what I'm saying? So I would imagine this is taking place in
So
the
it's
1930s or something.
yeah. When you said that it's from old, I mean from long time ago.
Yeah.
It's makes sense because I
Uh-oh, we lost. Oh no, we lost Shadow. She has these connection problems. She'll be back. She'll be back. And Amir, what about you? What do you think? Do you think that the description of the people, the non-Western people, do you think it's a fair description? Do you think it's do you think they're painted as primitive?
Well, this story reminded me by the Alchemist story. It's the same story, but a little bit differences about the Arab places that the character visited in the Arab world,
Uh-huh.
and I think it's a little bit fair to talk about Arab people and Arab places which you visit.
Right.
Uh, I think that they have a lot of culture and different kinds of stuff, like customs or something like that.
So do you think that there's respect for Arab culture in the story?
I think so.
Yeah. I mean, I know a little bit about Paul Bowles, and I know that as a person, he had enormous respect. One of the things that he did as a person is he brought the literature of Morocco to the West. It wasn't written. It was done through storytelling in cafes and in public squares. And he got some of the people that were famous storytellers. He got them to tell them his stories, tell him their stories. He recorded them, and he translated them so that they could be read by Western audiences. Uh, and I was told that some of them were very controversial because they weren't really accepted in Moroccan culture, some of the writers that he translated. By the way, Shadow, I think you got cut off. So
Sorry. Yeah, I was
go,
saying that. Okay.
go for it.
Yeah, really, to be honest, I didn't read the story, and
Mm.
not
Oh,
because there's a difficult word, but when I heard you talking, I get some. I understand the opinion of the story, so I mean it makes sense because it's from long time ago, and there is like a stereotypical for Arab in those days, you know.
mhm.
They always picture them like a how can I say like a barbarian, you know.
Like a barbarian.
Yeah, so maybe he was under this image. I because of that he wrote these things. I don't know what the story is about, but
Mhm.
when you said that is
So
like
what?
an mhm.
So So what would you say about today? Do you think that stereotype still exists? I do.
Yeah,
do,
but not
do you,
like before. Not
uh-huh,
like before.
mhm.
It's become like there's
The
other ways to know how people live there, and but in old days just from the books, from the media, and the media also
Mhm.
support this image, you know.
Well, the one thing that I hear a lot about, and you can see in the story, is the question about living as a tribe. And I know other students of mine in Verbling from Saudi Arabia talk about different tribes, and it's really hard for me to understand what that means. I don't understand tribes because it's not a part of my culture, and I don't know what it means. So in this story, we encounter two tribes. One tribe, two or three actually. One tribe is like a band of thieves. Then you've got the tribe of the women who wear the exotic jewelry and they dance, and it's all very exotic and strange. What do you think, and for Amir too, what do you think about this depiction of tribes? Are there still tribes today? Well, there's a lot of talk in the media about it. So what do you think about the description, and what do you think about how that relates to today? For both of you.
Uh,
Uh,
just a
mhm.
question, can you tell me what the meaning of a tribe? Because I want to follow you.
Sure. So, like tribe in the sense of a group of people that are not
Yeah,
necessarily
yeah,
the
yeah. I
close
get.
family.
Yeah, I get it. Thank you.
Desert people is one of the
Yeah,
tribe. Yeah.
it's Kabila. Yeah, I understand. Yes.
Um, I think the theme of this story is up to date now.
Yes.
Shadow said it is a old style. Maybe it's a old. It might take place in all the time, but in this time, same kind of story is often reported now.
In the media.
Yes,
Yeah.
in media. I mean the ISIS. Yeah.
Right.
In the end of the story, there is a description about the beheaded person. Yeah.
Yeah. To get revenge for selling the
Yes,
professor.
yes, same same kind of video is now prevailing, yeah. So you can even watch that scene in YouTube. So I think theme is not old. It is very up to date, and
But
and
that
and regarding the word primitiveness.
Yeah.
Yeah, as our teacher said, it is very interesting to point out that in the middle of the story, Professor think, found himself saying in the mind,
Hmm.
there are these people are not primitives.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but it's very important. This saying, he said that these
He's he,
people are not primitives,
he's
but
talking about the Kawaji at that point.
yes, it is. He said that he thought that uh, just before he descended the cliff,
Right.
yeah, alone.
Right.
But in the end, he was captured and he very primitive
He
tribes tortured him, humiliated him. So
and listen, there's also another thing. Just a quick point. Right before he gets right when he gets attacked and he gets the gun in his back and he passes out, it seems like they cut out his tongue. I don't know for sure, but someone grabs his tongue and he starts to think about an operation. And it seems to me that they cut out his tongue, which is pretty interesting because the character is a linguist. His whole life is about language. And first, he can't remember the words in Arabic and he has to use French. And then he gets his tongue cut out, or we think he gets it cut out. So he completely, like Daniel was saying earlier, his mind goes blank. It's like he has no personality and he's just a creature. So I kind of
I
feel.
think it doesn't matter for everyone. It's very, very awful scene.
Yep.
Imagine you, you are in that scene. Yeah, your tongue is pulled out and someone wanted to make operation. So it's a very scary.
I
Very
have
scary.
I have a question about
Go
the
for it.
culture. I don't know what that it is literally those little boxes made from camel ladders.
Right, right. That's the thing he's trying to get from the desert. He wants to bring back like a souvenir, kind of.
Huh?
Yes, it's a mystery. Why he wanted to get a box from Camel Radar. I
I
don't
think
know.
it's
No,
I
it is
think it's
not important, I think.
well, I think it just shows that he's a Western tourist. That's my feeling. Like he wants to bring, maybe he has this idea to put himself into danger, right? And he does that. But at least on the surface, he seems to want a kind of souvenir to show his other Western friends back at the hotel. Oh, look at this special thing that I got that I can only get in Algeria or
He
whatever.
said he is a collector of this kind of things.
Right.
So just it is not for souvenir. He's
Well,
just a collector.
I mean it a little bit metaphorically. I mean,
Mhm.
for example, when I went to Morocco, I came back with two hats.
Hat.
Two hats, two hats from Morocco. One that I bought because it was a really nice. I have it here. I can show you in another class. It was made in a little factory in Tangier, and it's really nice. I think it's made of raw silk, and it was not expensive. A silk in Europe is expensive, but it was affordable. Look, I don't have a lot of money, and I could afford it. And then I got a second hat, which was cheap, but it's because I was talking to someone on the street, and as a gift, he gave me the hat off of his head, and that was the hat that I liked more. And unfortunately, I lived with some Americans here in Portugal, and their dog ate the hat, and I
Yeah.
wanted to kill them because even though this hat was what the local people wore, everyone had one like it. I liked it because this guy gave it to me off of his head as a gift because I said something like, I said,
A sweat hat.
what, yeah, I said nice hat or something. I don't know what I said. I said, oh, that's a really nice hat. it is yours. And he gave it to me. But anyway, the point was this. When I bought the first hat, probably I was thinking, oh, this is really different. It's very beautiful. It's different. You don't see something like this in Europe or in America. So in a way, I'm being a stupid tourist. Even though I'm helping the local economy, I'm still being a stupid tourist. I'm being like a imperialist, taking culture from them and bringing it here and showing off. So I'm aware of that at least. The second hat was better because it was really a gift. I think the professor collects these boxes and things because it makes he might like them, but it also makes conversation when he's at the university. In a way, it's like he's an imperialist, and I think that my theory is that Paul Bowles is trying to say this guy wants an adventure. Well, this is what let's see what reality really looks like beyond his trinkets and his souvenirs and his imperialism. You know, he's not even aware. The professor's not even aware that he's an imperialist, but he
You
is.
think it's a kind of communication tool for
I
him
think it's
collecting a box?
pure arrogance. I think that on one hand he
Yeah.
has genuine respect for the culture, but on the other hand, just by virtue of going to get them and collecting them, it's a kind of imperialism. It's a kind of showing off. It's
I think
not
it's just an
authentic.
occasion for him to collect such things, to travel around, find something interesting for me in foreign countries.
Hmm?
So it is not for. I think it is not important for him really collect something, this kind of thing. Just he just wanted to travel.
Sure, I agree. I mean, I don't think consciously.
Adventure. He
Sure.
need adventure.
I agree. I don't think he's doing it on purpose. I don't think it's conscious. But what I'm saying is, on a deeper level, maybe a level that he's not even aware of, he's like everyone. He's there to
Yes,
steal the culture, to
yes.
tell a good story.
If think seriously, everyone traveler is like him, like with this professor, and at the same time, everyone have a dangerous, might be get into the dangerous moment when they would be traveling in another
Absolutely.
country
And
because
And also, not everyone can travel. So the fact that you're able to travel already shows that you're different than the local people. Those people in the tribes, could they go and visit the professor at Oxford University? I kind of doubt it. So that's what I mean. There's something going on that I think Paul Bowles is trying to make us aware of, that even the characters aren't aware of. I think that he's trying to touch on that and trying to say, oh, you want to have a little adventure in an exotic place? Well, guess what your adventure really looks like. In other words, it's like a wake-up call. So I think there's a commentary on Western attitudes. So that's my theory.
it is not
My,
only exotic place for tourists. It is really dangerous, and it is sometimes it is very difficult to understand for each other. Another culture, another tradition, another
right.
habit. So people from East, difficult to understand. People from West. That's another main big theme of this story.
I agree.
So
Absolutely. So, would any of you like to take this holiday of the professor that the professor took? Daniel, would you go on this holiday?
Uh, I went for my moon honeymoon.
You went for your honeymoon?
No.
Oh, you would go
I went in my honeymoon to Egypt.
to
It's
Egypt.
Egypt, yes.
Mhm.
Did you
But
have a similar adventure like the professor?
no. But the same environment could be.
How long ago was that?
Desert. Huh?
How long ago?
How long?
How long ago? When did you go on your honeymoon?
5 years ago.
5 years ago.
Yes.
So right before the Arab Spring, right?
Yes.
Right before.
You said the
There,
same
there
same
isn't
occasion?
any problem.
Not any problem.
No.
No.
It always was quiet, and the people very kind. It was a amazing trip trip. Sorry,
Yeah.
Did you
Amazing
see,
trip.
did you see
but
the desert tribe?
sorry.
Did you
Tribes.
did you see the desert tribes there, like Professor did?
I don't understand the question.
Tribes,
Did
tribes,
you
tribes. Did you see different tribes when you were there? Did you notice different tribes? So we got the people in the city, and also because like if you go to Morocco, it's the only
Yes,
place
yes,
I've
yes.
been. There's tribes that come down from the mountains called the
did you
Rif
go
people.
did you go to desert area? Desert.
There, there were a lot of people trying to selling things, to selling trips on the street, to travel or to
Take a camel ride.
uh, to bargain
Ah, bargain. Okay, yeah.
bargain
Very good.
all the
Did you
time.
take a ride of camel?
No.
No?
Yes.
Yes. I think
It was 14 days.
yes, it's a
I
famous
did
tourist
a lot of
event. Yeah.
things. Yes, I travel on a camel,
Travel on
but
camel.
with my tongue and my wife.
With your wife.
No bleeding,
Very good.
professor.
And what about you, Shadow? Do you travel by camel a lot?
No, I
No,
did
no, no.
no, but I just think that I just hear it because you're talking about
Uh-huh.
tribes, like they
Tribes,
are
yeah.
like they are monkeys when you said that they down from the mountains.
Well, I
Yeah,
remember
uh,
in Morocco that there was people, there were many different kinds of people, and the ones that were in the marketplace in Tangier, they said they were from the mountains, the Rift Mountains. So I don't know if they're really a tribe, but they were dressed the same way. They seemed to have their own dialect, and then
yeah.
there were Berbers who were very different with a different language.
Berber is not Arab. Berber
Hmm.
is a Nasikh. It's not Arab.
Right.
So I'm gonna tell you something. You know, here also in Saudi Arabia there is a different tribes, but it's not like what you think. It's they live a modern life, but
Hmm.
it means the tribes. It's like have the same name, have the same last name,
Right.
have the same dialect, have the same traditional food, traditional clothes. Sorry, it's
Hmm.
like that. It's not like they are uh, not educated or just live in mountains far away from people. It's not like that.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. The story is from a long time ago, and in the media, I think the depiction of tribes is very exaggerated, very brutal depiction. So we don't really know. That's the thing. Like I said, I don't really know what it's like. I knew people in New York, and they said, "Oh, I'm a Berber from Morocco." I worked with a guy in New York who
Uh-huh.
said, "Yes,
Yeah.
and I was like, "What's a Berber?"
Berber, it means Arab. There is two people, I don't know, two kind of people in Morocco, Algeria, and Tunisia.
Uh-huh.
Arab and the native people there, it's Berber. And Arab, they go there before, I mean, long time ago, but there is not native like Berber.
Right.
Yeah.
So I still don't know what that means, but I'm starting to understand.
Yeah. Okay. I don't want to make it later for if you have a next class or something.
Yeah, I have to stop in a minute. So, Shadow, you have to do a class on tribes for us so that we know what's going on.
Oh, sure.
We have to have a class on tribes. You have to do a
Okay.
little presentation and tell us what's going on so we understand.
Sure.
All right, next time.
Inshallah, next time.
Next time. All right. Yeah, we've got to stop. We're at the end of the hour. But okay, this was not a bad discussion. I hope it helped you understand the story a little bit better and start to understand some of the themes. I think what's really good, I'm just going to say this one more time, you know, I want people from the cultures themselves to represent themselves. So if we've got people that are from, like you, Shadow, who've got a better point of view because you understand the culture better, it really helps. So we can discuss the story in a much deeper way than if we were just reading it, looking at our. Because when I look at this, I think about the plot, the story. I think about the action. I think about the setting.
It's my mistake that I didn't read the story, so I'm sorry, really. Maybe if I read it, I'll be
But
more.
you were in one of the classes, so you read
Yeah, I
part of
was
it.
there,
Yeah.
but I
Don't worry,
didn't know.
Don't worry
I'm so
about
sorry.
it, Shadow. I think it would be a very very good motivation for learning more. Yeah, you can read after the class this story maybe.
Exactly.
Okay.
Now that you know a little
Very
more
fun.
about it, read it now, and it'll make a lot more sense because we've already discussed. You've got a better idea of what you're going to encounter.
Okay.
So read it
It's
now.
really interesting story, so I recommend you to read it.
Okay. Thank you, guys. Really.
All right, we're going to stop now. I'll be back Monday morning at 10 for the pronunciation class, and the rest of the classes are pretty much as normal. I won't have the business class on Monday because I have an interview, so I won't be there at 11, but I will be there at 10. Have a great weekend, everyone. Questions or comments, send me a message to the Verbling chat system. Have a good weekend. Bye for now.
Have a good
Bye bye.
weekend.
See you
Thank
soon.
you.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Bye.
See you.